Wrong.
Hello, nerds, and welcome. We are crossing the Nerdverse. My name is Travis. I am joined, as always, by my fantastic co hosts, Eric, Ryan, and Clark. This week's topic, we're going to talk about new players to tabletop RPGs. But first, a word from our sponsors.
And by sponsors, we mean we would really like some sponsors. No, I'm just playing. I am going to take this moment, though, to do the same thing I do at the beginning and end of each of our episodes so that y'all can listen to my beautiful voice and ask you guys desperately to give us some interaction. We love having you guys here. That you are the reason we do all of this, why we talk about all of this, and we want to have some fun with you. In order to continue to expand,
Phrasing.
yeah,
This sounds so thirsty. Like I
so
am
thirsty.
sorry.
We're getting close to that episode
Slide into
69
my
here.
DMs, please. I bet.
But guys, if you can, give us a like, especially on YouTube. Give us a subscribe, a follow, anywhere you get your podcast. Give us a little bit of interaction. All those algorithm things that you hear everybody preach about all the time are actually very, very helpful and continues to let us do what we do. And while for us, you listening in, your viewership is more than enough, we would like to get some interaction so that we can continue to expand and reach more people. So give us a like. It takes 2 seconds, an easy click, and we would be forever grateful.
And on that note,
How was
I
your
like
week,
spaghetti.
Eric?
What?
Not bad. I actually had a great discussion about spaghetti, throwing that out there. So I've come to the conclusion that
We had a great
spaghetti is only
discussion about
spaghetti
throwing spaghetti
with
or
garlic
just.
bread. That was the
Throwing
discussion.
spaghetti and garlic bread?
No,
No, it's only spaghetti if you have garlic bread with it.
No.
no, it's still spaghetti.
No, the
I
discussion
can
was had.
literally, I
None
can
of you were
literally go
there.
get you a spaghetti noodle,
Unfortunate.
and
I
it'll still be
really want to
spaghetti.
be a fly on the wall in your house.
I do this at work. I do this like
Oh,
out of
that's
nowhere
work.
at work. Yeah, oh yeah. We'll just be sitting there having some serious discussion. I'll be like, so like when you guys make your meatballs, do you use like breadcrumbs or like do you actually use bread? And then we have a discussion for a minute and then we move on.
You don't
Question.
use either one.
That's
You don't use
meatloaf.
breadcrumbs?
Yeah,
You-
you use
I like to
breadcrumbs
use a
and
little bit of
meatloaf.
breadcrumbs to make
You can
meatballs
use it
because
as a
it'll keep them
binding
together.
agent, but like
You use
when
egg.
you think bread, are you thinking
egg
of
too.
a slice of bread you're
You
just
can do that too.
throwing into the meat and mushing around for meatballs?
No,
No,
no.
you
Like I
Just
picked it
tossing in
apart.
a
You
piece of
crumb
Wonder
it.
Bread.
Yeah.
In my mind, he's like, "Oh, I got honey wheat," and he was like,
I mean,
Here's a piece
I
of
rip it up
Frank's
a little
rye.
bit, but
We're
yeah.
gonna toss in with this.
Anyways,
"I'm not eating at your house. I am just."
I'm
So
never eating anything you cook.
I'm actually pretty good. But on another note, so yeah, that was part of my week with spaghetti. And
Apparently,
then
a big part.
yeah, it usually is. I'm very like I really want to make the ultimate spaghetti is my goal. I've heard red wine, soaking your breadcrumbs in red wine before you put them in the meatballs, really good. Anyways,
Don't tell this to Italians.
so after that, I also started
You
working on
should
some
just buy your
interesting.
meatballs frozen from the store.
No. So after that, I started working on like a new like little logo thing, just to kind of play around with something a little bit easier and different, not just our like really nice logo. Um, just to play. And then I made 2 Christmas shirts that will be live as of right now.
Is
What's up?
anyone else picturing Eric just wadding like Wonder Bread around a frozen meatball and then tossing it into the soup? Like,
I'm more imagining like bread chunks, like you rip off and you feed ducks,
Yeah.
but they're like in the
Yeah.
in the meatball.
Yeah,
I think that's more terrifying.
whatever. You're all just jealous of my abilities.
So,
That's what it
listen,
is.
you guys ever put marinara sauce in your Cheerios? It's not bad.
I know I'm the one that's supposed to like yank the reins, get us back on track, and that kind of stuff. But
No, I want to talk about spaghetti.
I got to talk about spaghetti apparently this episode because I love spaghetti. It's easily in my top 5 favorite dishes of all time. And
Are you
none of
guys
the
talking about
ingredients.
the noodle spaghetti, or are you
No, the
talking
meal.
about like spaghetti with marinara sauce, like meat sauce?
Here's the
Yeah,
thing. I just like
that's
the
what I'm
noodles. I've had
talking
them
about.
prepared like 1,000 different ways. It's still spaghetti. But if you say spaghetti, some marinara sauce, some spaghetti noodles, and that's kind of your meal. The meatballs, the garlic bread are fantastic and delicious additions, and not at all necessary to the meal.
This
What is it?
conversation
Sorry.
is making me upsetty spaghetti.
Skedaddle skadoodle. This conversation's a
I'm
noodle.
just saying. You gotta have garlic bread.
Whew. Okay.
I mean, I love garlic bread
Ooh.
as much as the next guy, but it is not like a necessary fixture when having
Do you
Italian
use your
food.
garlic bread to like scoop up your remaining sauce? Because I could see you thinking that that is then required, because that's how I use my garlic bread.
I actually put noodles on the bread with a little bit of sauce and like eat it that way.
I
I'm
can't
not-
knock
I'm not
this
mad
as
at
that.
I've done that. It's pretty solid. Yeah, I make like a little piece of garlic
Yeah.
toast with the spaghetti noodles and sauce on top, and then just eat it like a quick open face sandwich, and it's pretty good.
Yeah,
It's
I'm about spaghetti sandwiches. They're good.
I will say, in a pinch, when I had to eat in less than 5 minutes when I was in the army, everything becomes a sandwich if you're driven enough to get through all of your meal. And I have put spaghetti between 2 regular pieces of white bread and eaten it like a sandwich.
Oh,
and
and if you
I'm not
lube it,
proud.
it goes down faster. If you use like the oil that we cleaned our weapons with, CLP.
You're gonna have so much cancer. Like CLP is super bad for you.
I mean, it's on your hands. It's on
Do
your
you
sandwich.
cook with it?
You're just eating
It's like
it.
oil's oil. It's the same as olive oil. Just pours it into the pan.
Actually, I use avocado oil. I'm just saying.
look at you. It has a higher burn rate. Good job.
Y'all remember when Eric was talking about just falling back and doing our editing, and we were worried about not having
Yeah.
4 people on the show anymore? I remember that conversation. I'm going to change my stance.
I think we would lose a lot of this great
Yeah, this is solid
content.
content. Yeah.
Hey, Clark, how was your week?
And Pikachu would go down in ratings.
I know. My week. I don't know what you're doing with your fingies.
Oh, having a little bit of a seizure
Oh,
because of
gotcha.
Pikachu coming up again.
He's doing the Tua Tagovailoa from last year.
I was like, oh no. My week was good. I mean, it was Thanksgiving. We traveled out to Pennsylvania for my husband's sister's wedding, so that was cold as hell. And yeah, it's been a pretty calm week at work. So just kind of prepping for end of the year. I mean, everyone kind of disappears in December, so this is when I get to like clean up all my files and play in Excel for 3 hours every day, just like noodling. So it's been fun. I have binged through Apothecary Diaries, which I'm very sad I just now started, but also not sad because now I have to wait for episodes, and that makes me very sad. It's super cute. If you like, I think it's Edo, Japan, Edo, China, something around that time frame in one of those two countries. I want to actually say it's China based on the building design, but don't know that much about history. And it's kind of like a Sherlock Holmesy light rom-com, very cute. The animation is gorgeous on it, and it's a weekly anime, so it's super cute, and I'm very excited to have another obsession because I apparently needed a new one. Hooray!
Yeah, because having one just wasn't enough.
I only have I think like 23 tabs open on my phone for all like the stupid web comics I'm reading through now. And I like go through and see which one's updated every day. I'm like, yay.
Is it this one? No. Is it this one? No.
Yeah, basically.
This
I'm
one?
like, new episode? No. God damn it. Right faster. Oh, sorry, people at MAPPA.
Why can't you people write on a timeline that I agree with? Get back in the studio and write.
I was excited. I found a new manga called Tower of God. And the reason I'm enjoying it because it's 600 chapters. I was like, yes, something I can't burn through in a weekend. Or else I'm going to finally have to read One Piece, which I'm on episode 700. So I'm getting there.
I've been binge watching so much One Piece. Ryan, how was your week?
Oh, it's been pretty good. I do want to take a minute while we're sitting here doing the hi, how are yous to give or wish a happy Thanksgiving holiday season to all of our American listeners. I hope everybody had a really good time. I'm very, very excited to be going into the Christmas season. And I spent the week basically prepping for that, getting the decorations up, waiting till after Thanksgiving and it's socially acceptable to put up the tree and all that kind of stuff. So that's
Thank you
been,
for waiting for after Thanksgiving. I appreciate that greatly because
I,
Thanksgiving is by far my favorite holiday.
yeah, I got too much respect for Thanksgiving to encroach on its territory, but
Christmas is
um,
not allowed to start in this house until December 1st. You each get your month. No creeping.
I just want more than 30 days of jolly, okay?
You can be
Um,
jolly all the way to
Extend into
January
the new
3rd.
year. Like,
Yeah, you can be jolly all the way to January 3rd and then go back to being depressed like everybody else.
but as far as the Nerdverse stuff, I was very excited because Destiny 2 released this season of The Wish. Super stoked, enjoying that content a lot so far. And
Helping
so,
fund Clark's salary.
yeah, helping pay Clark.
I am not on Destiny 2, but thank you. I appreciate your dedication to a game that I know very little about. If you want to talk about Destiny 1, then I have like 2,000 hours in that game.
What about you, Travis?
I also had to decorate. This is actually the first year I have ever decorated for Christmas, mostly for the fact that we will be hosting this year because of the new addition. Little Alan has definitely changed some dynamics in my family, mostly from the fact that my parents don't care about me or my sister anymore because they have a grandbaby now. So pretty much all of us have been relegated to accessories that just live around Alan. So, but no, I also am attempting to get into the festive spirit. I am putting uh, what little work I have done on Clark's models on hold. Sorry, Clark.
Oh,
But I have to paint this before Christmas. I got to shade the light a little bit so you guys can see.
Oh, you got a red
It's
gobbo.
the Red Gobbo.
Fantastic.
So I will be painting the Red Gobbo for Christmas.
it's going to take you the whole month.
Probably.
No, it'll probably take me like 2 days if I work on it like pretty
No,
steadily. He's
but
not a
it's
very big model and he's not very complex.
Sounds
but
like
it's the
there's still
standard
a chance
procedure.
for
You
my
have to do
army.
Yeah,
between 9 and 15 days worth of motivation building up to a scary model.
yeah, I have to look at it
And
like 4 days in a row going, I should paint, and then finally sit down and paint for like one day. And that'll be like the sprue and then like the cleanup and sanding, and then I'll primer it. And I'm like, well, the primer needs to rest for 24 hours. And so then another 13 days goes by, and then I panic because it's not going to be ready for Christmas. And then I paint it in a whole day.
there you go. That's
And
standard. That's standard practice.
yeah, that's how Warhammer minis go. And then I tell myself I'm not going to buy any more models. Looks at his pile of unpainted minis.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about my pile of gray shame.
Speaking of
I'm
gray
just
shame,
3D printing them.
you speaking of gray shame, new Necron models are getting released. They're already up for pre-order, so you should check out Games Workshop's website
Okay,
and look at all the
fantastic.
fun new sculpts you're getting. I think they have a new Sazerac. I think that's how you say his name. I'm not 100% on that.
I mean, nobody can agree. The authors and narrative and creative teams at GW can't agree on how to say
I feel
his
like the
name.
only
So
thing that's true canon in the Warhammer universe is that orcs speak with like the Cockney British accent, and I think that's the greatest thing ever.
yeah,
That's the one who thinks anything that's red is magic or more
No,
better.
anything is red
it's
is
faster.
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 Yellow explodes bigger. Purple is stealthy. Blue
Blue.
fly. No, blue is lucky.
Blue's lucky. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fair.
Black and white checker patterns make you tougher.
Oh yeah, because when they fought Horus, yeah.
Yeah, because when they fought Horus, he absolutely just dog walked them. God, the orcs are just great lore wise. They make me so happy. If
Hey,
they
and on the
believe in
subject of
anything hard
orcs,
enough,
What a
it
great
exists.
first monster.
yeah, on the subject of orcs and the way that they work in 40K, we're going to be talking about the power of imagination today. I'm actually really excited for tonight's episode. Um,
Anyone else just have the flashback to the South Park episode where they go to Imagination Land?
I haven't watched that in forever, so
yeah,
unfortunately,
Love South Park.
not
The
on my
show's so good.
regular viewing list. But we are going to be talking about tabletop RPGs, things like World of Darkness, Dungeons and Dragons, Blades in the Dark, all the good stuff, and specifically paying attention to tabletop RPGs when you are a beginner or when your table is bringing in a beginner. So a little bit of discussion on what it's like for veterans, what it's like for new people, and good practices if you're trying to find your own table or your own game to join and get in on this crazy new fandom that is tabletop RPGs. Little disclaimer, at least for me, I am very prone to use the phrase Dungeons and Dragons as kind of a catch-all when it comes to fantasy tabletop RPGs. If I do that during the episode, I beg your forgiveness. It's gonna happen. I can feel it.
All is D&D. Everyone wave at my wife in the background.
Yeah.
You're on live. Welcome. She had to get the swinging chair for the baby. I just had to shout her out as I saw her move through my background.
Dude, I like this shirt, by the way. So
Yeah,
it looks like it turned out pretty good.
It's a
Yeah.
Nerdverse shirt. Yeah, the sizing is correct on it. It didn't shrink too much when we washed it, so it turned out great. I appreciate it, you guys. We have one for the whole family to include baby. He's still a little small to wear his, but soon.
I went a little bigger because I wasn't sure, because sometimes babies
Yeah, no, we have
grow
so many like
and stuff
newborn
so
clothes
fast.
that he already doesn't fit in. They were like, he can wear this all the way until he's 2 months old, and I'm like, no, he cannot. He's already getting his little fat baby Buddha belly. Oh, it's adorable.
Well, and we do have our Christmas stuff coming out here pretty quick. I hope that's an okay plug. Looks at
Sweet Christmas
Eric,
sweater.
who's in charge of that.
Yeah, no, it's out.
Um,
We got a sweater and a t-shirt.
No, I think it looks really sharp. I'm very, very excited for our seasonal releases on this one. So anybody that's listening, if you're into our merch, go check it out because it's good stuff. Go look at it.
Back to tabletop RPGs and
So
how we use the word Dungeons and Dragons for pretty much all of them.
yeah, for pretty
Actually,
much
we
all
don't
of
say
them.
Dungeons and Dragons; we just say D&D.
Yeah,
I
D&D.
did have to
basically.
explain to my coworkers today what a murder hobo was, and that was a very fun 10 minutes.
All right, so when you start approaching kind of tabletop RPGs and D&D and wanting to do that kind of stuff, back in the day it was a lot different than it is in kind of the modern environment around tabletop RPGs. And fortunately, me and Travis both had the experience of starting absolutely from scratch. Me and
A
Travis
whole
were both
group starting from scratch.
we gathered a group of our friends in high school, a bunch of drama kids and that kind of thing, and just sat down and said, "Hey, let's try this game. It looks kind of neat." Never realizing that was going to be the defining aspect of my personality for the next few decades.
Well, it was like 5 drama kids and then 3 jocks. We had the starting like power forward for our basketball team, the starting center for our football team, and a cornerback, starting
Yep, corner.
cornerback from our football team.
Yeah.
Man,
Let's
I
see,
had to like hide that I played D&D in high school, and you guys were just out and about. Like we would talk in the alleyways between classes, and then go to like lunch where we had to talk about normal things.
Don't get me wrong. We probably should have been a little more reserved about it. But I think we turned out okay, and it was really cool when we got our group together. So I guess
I
we'll
can tell
start
you, nobody in our high school was going to try and fight Robbie.
No.
Yeah, that's cheating.
Yeah, Robbie had a head start. He outweighed everybody. Well, no, there was a couple of people that were bigger than Robbie, but Robbie was probably the strongest person in our graduating class.
That's a true story. So yeah, I guess that's a place to start. That's where me and Travis started, is ground up, getting started absolutely from scratch. And there are a few drawbacks and a few upsides to doing it that way, I think.
I see Valkyrie has chosen violence today for the podcast.
He gets really
Absolutely.
close to hitting that X button up in the top of my corner, and she knows her, because it's a touch screen laptop, she knows her nose functions on the screen. It's annoying and adorable all at the same time.
She's like, I'll teach you to pay attention to anything other than me.
Basically.
What edition do you guys start with? You guys start with 3rd or something? I think you told me before.
3.5?
Was it 3? I think it was 3.5. When we started playing, we actually originally started in 3rd for like a session. And 3.5
It's a
release.
couple of sessions.
What's the easiest edition to get into? Because
Oh, 5th.
my brain immediately goes like, oh, you start from 1 and then you go up. Like, what's the
God,
difference between the
the
editions?
rules in original like D&D or Dungeon like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons are so convoluted. That's such a
Oh
hard
yeah.
system to run.
So
Even
here's
second
the
wasn't
thing,
easy.
and we covered a lot of this in our kind of like D&D episode 1 and 2s.
Which I think was before Clark joined the podcast.
It might have been
I
before
think
Clark
so.
joined us, yeah. So the original Dungeons and Dragons. Now there's a lot of conjecture and rumor and theory that is evolved from how D&D got started. For my research, this is the one that is most accurate, but I am by no means saying like this is the authority. It's 100%. I have been led to believe that the original Dungeons and Dragons actually came and spawned out of a miniatures tabletop game similar to Warhammer called Chainmail. And they were sitting there and doing
I've
their
heard that
thing,
too.
and it started with a question of like, so we play this game and we're the commanders of these grand armies. I wonder what it would be like if we were just one of the soldiers, this little squad of people that were in this fight. And so that's what they did. They just designed a game from ground up, and it kind of evolved as time went along with rules and clarifications and how should this work kind of stuff. And so the original Dungeons and Dragons was very military-esque, and that's why the original iterations of the game were very what we refer to as crunchy. They were very mechanics
Combat driven.
driven. Yeah, they were very combat driven and had to deal with how well can you attack, how are these weapons different, how does your armor work?
Okay.
And
So
so
getting into it, 5th edition is the easiest if I were just to, I
yeah,
mean,
if you were
I
just going to
look at
jump in,
handbook, but
5th edition is the first edition of the game that has been entirely designed from the ground up to be welcoming to new players.
okay.
It's
Yeah,
very beginner friendly, it's very easy to understand. The mechanics are not overly complex. And even for a veteran player like me, I still go to a 5th edition D&D game every week. I still like the system. It does have problems that are really only apparent when you are a veteran player.
yeah.
Um,
And
and
well,
so
and like my complaint with D&D has always been how much things freaking weigh.
yeah,
Bothers me so much from like a realistic perspective because they're like, a Warhammer weighs 20 pounds, and I'm like, no, it doesn't. It weighs less than 5.
nobody could pick up a 20-pound Warhammer and
The
swing it with
really
any kind of
big one.
proficiency.
It's
Yeah,
just
like
Um,
D&D is just you need an experienced storyteller for that more than a lot of the other ones, in my opinion, for it to be decent. Like if you look at like
I
Pathfinder,
dis-
I feel like
I disagree.
Pathfinder was
yeah,
made by veterans that wanted something more because like
yeah.
Pathfinder's like super crunchy. Like they've got a skill base to like change your boots, if I'm not mistaken. Like
Well,
it's just
here's the thing about
nuts.
Pathfinder in its current iteration, and I won't turn the entire stream into like comparing
Right.
tabletop RPGs, but Pathfinder in its current iteration, when I started reading into it and doing my research for it, because my primary table is wanting to switch into a Pathfinder game, it feels to me, and as somebody who's dungeon mastered for 20 years, it feels to me like a game that was designed to stop power gamers from power gaming, is what it is. It's so crunchy and so minutia field in order to keep everybody contained within the mechanic system. Now, it
Yeah.
does a fantastic job. It covers a lot more ground, and there's a lot less kind of fill in the space kind of holes that an inexperienced dungeon master can fall into. And
Yeah.
that's one of the beautiful things about the current iteration of Pathfinder. The history behind Pathfinder was really interesting because Pathfinder, when it originally came out, it was working off of the tagline of or 3.5 lives, but D 3.5 thrives. And so they did not like fourth edition of D&D because no one did. It was garbage. And they didn't like the way they were doing it. They said it was too much like a video game. And so Pathfinder released with an update to the 3.5 rules, and because everything was under the OGL at the time, and created their own game out of it. It's been wildly successful. And I love the universe they've created. I think they've done a really amazing
Yeah.
job. And the new
Yes.
edition of Pathfinder is fantastic. But I do not agree with your initial statement, and that'll bring us back into tabletop for beginners. I don't think you necessarily need an experienced or veteran GM in order to run Dungeons and Dragons. We did it with our group in 3.5 where nobody knew jack all about anything.
Yeah.
The most important thing about, and I'm going to again start on I have 5 friends that are all interested, but none of us have ever done this before kind of take on beginner tabletops. And that's just the fact that you got to come in with respect. The DM's got to respect the game and respect the players. The players have to respect the DM. And if you're with the same group of people, you can work through the kinks and get to where you need to be very, very quickly. It's very organic, and your
Yeah.
group will find your pacing, your speed, and your story very quickly. And all of that is to say, this is how I did it. This is how me and Travis did it, and it's actually a way that I recommend most people to do it because you find a vibe that's very much your own. I
Yeah, our
I want to
first
say,
sessions were very just fun
But
driven.
yeah,
Because I brought this up before. I was actually our first ST for our Dungeons and Dragons game. I ran the very first game we ever played.
true story.
And it was slipshod because none of us knew it, like mechanic. Like we had read the books, right? And we're like, yeah, we could do this. And then like you get into it, and you're just like, I don't know how these two mechanics are supposed to interact. And so it just basically turned into like, I'm done reading through the rules to see if we can find a clarification. Sounds good to me. We're gonna let it run, um, which was super fun, and it was kind of like what we needed, just to get everybody having a good time. Because that was
but
the ultimate goal, was to sit down and have fun with my friends
Yeah,
on Friday nights.
you also did 3.5 though, which is a little bit easier than 5. Like I'm
No,
not
it's
saying you
not.
need to have like
Five's way
some.
easier. Five is
no,
Oh no,
so
no,
much
I mean
easier.
like 3.5 is more. There's more there for you if you're running the game. Like there's more things like Pathfinder. There's more skills and there's less things that you can kind of
That
fall
that
into
makes
when you're
it
starting out.
that makes it so much
So
harder to get new players
yeah.
in.
Whenever you're first going into the game, you know, you don't need these hard, crunchy guidelines for every single action that could possibly be taken.
Yep.
And a lot of veteran players and a lot of players that feel like they've done a few games and are looking for something more complex, they do value the things that you're talking about. It's how much time does it take for me to get up from my rest state, throw on my armor, and get combat ready?
Yeah,
A
that
lot of that kind of
sense of
stuff comes
realism.
in. And some players like a really gritty experience, and others, they're in it for more of the fantasy, high adventure escapism of tabletop RPGs. And I know
And
plenty of
then
DMs
some
that,
people want to live out their murder hobo fantasies.
yeah, but
Um,
I know plenty of DMs that will completely throw away the encumbrance rules and just not worry about it because it
yeah,
doesn't affect their game at all. And so having an action to put on your boots, or having a skill that's specifically designed for using a rope, isn't necessary by most people.
no, not like I
yeah,
completely agree. As you
it,
go
it-
and like as you play and like that's what I mean. Like I'm not saying you got to be some veteran DM for like the last like fucking 10 years, but some experience is kind of needed for fifth just so it's not so you don't feel so overwhelmed because you don't have you fifth is great if you're one of those people that can just make a decision on the fly and can do whatever. So as a beginner, like that's really nice, like because it's more open. Like you can just kind of whatever. Like in regards to your rope thing, like maybe you could go with acrobatics or something like that for fifth. But in like a Pathfinder setting, like it's there. So it makes it so you don't have to make any decisions. Like it's kind of there.
but
And
you
where
but you have
fifth
to make
is
more decisions
isn't
in
as much.
Pathfinder because you're having a much stricter skill allotment,
Yeah.
as opposed to fifth, which leaves it more open, which again
It
makes
does.
it easier to regulate because you can just govern all of this with a dex check, which makes a new DM
Well, and
much.
see,
It makes it much easier on a new DM, even if they're not decisive. They can go, yeah, rope dexterity based. It's all hand manipulation.
go for it, Clark.
Oh no, you guys continue. I'm gonna completely take this in another direction.
All right, so I actually agree with what Travis is saying. And I'm going to try to present in a way that I think is easy to digest. And that's the fact that whenever you're dealing with a complicated system, and our group suffered for this in 3.5, right? When we first started playing, we didn't even have a dungeon master's guide. We had a monster manual and we had a player's handbook, and that's it. And we just kind of figured it out from there. And I think that fifth edition actually being able to just grab the one book, you just get the D&D Player's Handbook. You don't really need a lot of anything else. You can play your first games without a monster manual, without a DM's guide or any of that jazz, and continue to work up in comfort level until your dungeon master can craft complex worlds. And I don't think that what you were saying about decisions really holds either, because I think that the D&D fifth edition and the way that it's set up is one of the most easy to understand systems that we've had in a Dungeons and Dragons game. They broke it down into, you have a move, you have an action, and sometimes you have a bonus action depending on what you're doing. And I think that verbiage is really easy for people to understand. It's like, okay, so I can move and I can perform an action.
Yep.
And if I'm playing a more complex class like a rogue or a monk, there are things I can do with my bonus action. And then that's your economy, right? And so, there's more stuff you get into with reactions and attacks of opportunity and that kind of stuff. And we've told the story on the show before, but in 3.5, because of the minutia and the complexity of the rules, until you had a really good grasp of a veteran understanding of the mechanics of D&D 3.5, you kept running into strange problems. Vis-a-vis, we had an encounter one time, and we were a few years into playing D&D at this point, into 3.5, and there was a drowning situation. One of our players was underwater. We were worried about like breath holding time, et cetera, et cetera. And so we decided to look up, okay, what's the crunch of drowning in D&D? And so you start off in the water hazard section, you're going through, and it's like, okay, if a character spends this long underwater, it has to do with your constitution modifier. They begin to drown. When you drown, see suffocation. Okay, so we flip over to suffocation. Look in the index, and suffocation says C, not being
C,
able to
drown.
breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember. Yeah, you guys
Yeah,
mentioned it before.
and so you get stuck in those loops. And in 3.5, it was a long time until we had hard, crunchy rules for what happens if you're drowning. In 5th edition, it's a lot easier. It's a lot simpler, and especially for an inexperienced dungeon master, because I want to start on the grassroots kind of ground up game setup. I think that 5th edition is going to be the smoothest ride.
Yeah, it also gives you a very specific tag because effects fall into specific categories.
Correct.
The
So
only
instead of
thing
having
I'll
like
say.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Ryan. Or go ahead, Eric.
I was gonna say the one thing is like if you look at the community like on like X and like on Facebook and stuff like that, a lot of them do want rules though. Like if you look, like a lot of times they are questioning. Um, I'm so sorry. I really respect this guy, and I can't remember his name. The guy that actually like is in charge of like all the D&D rules and stuff right now.
Jeremy Crawford.
Yes,
Yep.
amazing human, and he reaches out and answers questions, which makes him
He
even
is
more
constantly
incredible.
making clarifications on
Right,
rulings, which is
and
dope.
that's why I was trying to like it, like we all are kind of different in the sense of like we're willing to like just play with whatever. We don't need hard written rules. But to me, it seems like when you look at the community as a whole, it seems like quite a lot of people that want like the actual, like, I know what you're telling me, like you don't need them. If you're a DM, you can easily work
Well,
around it. But
I
it
think
seems like there's a lot of people out there that starting out want the rules in there.
I think it's nice because like if you're a DM like mine, I as a player will forget. I'm like, "Oh, did you let me do this last time or what was the rules for that last time?" And like because we only play once a week or sometimes once every other week, like he'll forget and he'll be like, "I don't remember because I had a ring that let me walk on water." Well, we came up to a gelatinous cube, which is, to my knowledge, mostly water. So I was like, can I use my ring to repel this gelatinous cube because he's water? Like, can I punch it? And he was like, well, I don't know. So, but then like he let me do one thing and then we came upon another cube and I was like, hey, do you remember if you let me do that? Or like what it was that you let me do? So I think it gets kind of hard to be consistent unless your DM is constantly writing down like what rules your table creates as he goes along, which kind of
Which,
it's hard for
for the
DM.
record, you DMs that are just beginning to learn, do that. Do exactly that.
Yeah.
Like, I have so many little rules callings that in every system I've ever done, from World of Darkness through Scion to D&D to Pathfinder,
Pain in the butt
you're
to look
not
through your
going to
notes
be
though.
able to avoid having to swing the DM hammer.
Speaking
You're
of
gonna have
new players and new DMs, before I lose track of this, Scion is not for you.
What is
that is a fact.
Scion?
It's
Scion
the
is a modern RPG system where you play demigods. Think a la
Oh,
Percy Jackson. And
it's so it's so easy to break. Like
it's very easy to break.
every single one of us. So again, a very very veteran table. Sat down, created characters. We knew very little about the physical mechanics. So most of us just kind of picked purviews, powers, and things like that based on this sounds dope. This is neat. I'll
Yeah,
take
this sounds cool.
And we would be like, hey, these two powers will interact with each other. That's pretty dope. I'll pick this one up too. So just as an example, I created a Scion of Loki. I was 100% stealth based. You work on a tick system. Depending on what action you take, depends on how many ticks you have to wait before you can act again. I technically worked on an 8 count, I
Five
think.
count.
5 count.
It's a 5 count tick.
So I worked on 5 count ticks. Every 5 ticks, I would deal what was called aggravated damage, which is basically just lethal damage. Like it bypasses soak, it bypasses damage reduction, it hurts you down to your soul. Every 5 seconds, I could just do massive amounts of damage because I found 2 mechanics that worked really well with one another. And it was all based around stealth. We had another guy who became so obscenely strong that he could basically one-shot most bosses. And again, this was all
Yeah.
without trying. This was all just
Yeah.
like
You have to
these
have a
two
lot.
mechanics had worked great.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of respect for the table if you're going to run Scion, which actually brings me into the point I was going to bring up to Eric. So when it
Who's
comes down
disco
to it,
balling?
I actually kind of dig the lights. I'm not going to lie.
it is very distracting, and I want him
It
to
looks
not
like
have a hat
flashing
that
booby
says, like,
tassels.
that's what it is. It's his Deadpool sweater, and that's what it is. And I want him to have a hat that says my eyes are up here.
So when it comes to that kind of stuff, Eric brought up community feedback. Now, a lot of new players or prospective players are going to start dipping their toes into the game via the social media and community groups of Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm here to tell you that that is a very dangerous path to take. The unfortunate truth is that the most vocal and most viral sources of Dungeons and Dragons data that are out there right now are people that do not treat the game with any kind of respect. They're trying to break it, they're looking for rules loopholes, and the people
Yeah,
that are begging for rules are the ones that have seen rule interactions in the game break and are trying to keep that from happening in the future. They're just trolls. Do not do that to your DM. Do not build an overpowered character that's just min-maxed and power statted and twinked to the nine.
you should always min max. It's the only type of character you should ever build, especially if you're playing at Ryan's table.
Yeah.
You should really base your entire character on a set of mechanics and then worry about any type of RP value if you survive.
Yeah, that's a really good way, especially with inexperienced dungeon masters, to ensure that they never run a story for you again. And it kind of
Yeah.
solves the whole problem.
Now,
Dungeons and Dragons has a clear win condition, and
Yeah,
that's only
everybody
if
out
you
here
min
trying to
max.
win D&D.
you can win D&D. You just have to be the only teammate left alive at the end. Boom!
Oh
You
well,
get
then
all the loot.
Elena has the record because for whatever reason, anytime our table gets wiped, Elena manages to escape. She's just like, "I believe in you guys. I'll see you later, bye."
But
It's
real,
the
but
Homer Simpson where he's just going into the
Into the
hedge.
bush,
Yeah, she's
so
we're out there battling
fade
like
into
orcs and
French.
stuff, and she just like melds into the bush and then comes back as an orc. Like, I've been with you the whole time.
Disguise self.
Yeah.
oh, such a good idea. But on a serious note, so for beginners, I know we were talking about like starting out and things like that. We've kind of gone over the whole aspect of like sort of a D&D compared to like a Pathfinder. Don't do Scion to start with. So, what does everybody feel about the fact that D&D does these cool starter pack one-shot things now?
Oh, I'm for
Personally,
that.
a huge fan. It's
Yep.
it's cost effective. You could
Yeah.
stay under 5th level, which I'm sorry to like burst a lot of people's bubbles, but from what I've experienced, seen, and talked to people about, a lot of times games don't always last that long. So a lot of times you find yourself starting kind of anew.
Yeah.
So it is nice to see that well, D&D is kind of not D&D, but the company that owns them that also owns Magic. While they are definitely
Hasbro.
taking horrible advantage of Magic players and other people, they are doing D&D right by making cheaper starter packs with literature that's in there that can really get you started. So that to me that's a big thing we should definitely bring up is those because they didn't
Yeah,
have them for any of the prior editions.
No.
I do want to jump in right here. This is important information. So for those of you that are looking to get into tabletop RPGs because you've watched some of the mainstream D&D stuff like Critical Role or similar fare, Dimension 20 or the like,
Stranger
be
Things.
aware is Stranger Things. Be aware that it is extraordinarily rare for a starter campaign to act like one of those campaigns. It's extraordinarily
Eh.
rare to have a DM who knows they want to be a DM, who's good at it, yada, 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 and that will run a consistent weekly game for you for the next 5 years. It is unlikely.
And do all
And
the
so,
voices.
yeah, and do all the
Yeah, it's
voices and make the maps and all the
critical
stuff.
Critical Role like got a professional DM together with a whole bunch of like very proficient voice actors.
Yeah, they were a bunch of voice actors that nerds and played D&D, and as soon as they
Yeah.
started putting it on the internet, of course that's fantastic. They're voice actors.
Yeah,
Now,
it's amazing content. Like I would
yeah,
tip my hat
I,
to them in that regard.
I'm a fan of their stuff. I think they do really good. I'm a fan of Darrington Press and the board games and the stuff they release that's similar. I'm about it. But
Vox
new
Machina
players,
is the animated version of Critical Role. That's really good on Amazon Prime. Probably
yes.
one of
Yes.
the
So the
best.
Legends of Vox Machina was the first campaign
Yeah.
that
Yeah, that was
started being
season 1 for
streamed.
Critical Role.
Yeah. And so be okay with testing the waters. Play a couple of campaigns that are level 1 to level 4, level 1 to level 7, and be aware that playing beyond level 12 is rare, unlikely, and frankly not any fun for your DM.
Get good
Jump
at
in
So
and
being
start at
a Breaker
bully your
Paladin.
bully your DM to letting you start at level 15. Like really just
Just be broken off the bat.
What
you're
one
not
thing
broken, it just becomes extremely difficult because there's very few pre-builts out there that deal with that many levels.
well,
And
and
that's when you start getting closer to your capstone abilities. And so you
yeah,
can really, if you mainline a class, you can have some really weird abilities.
mhm.
So one thing I want to say is one show that does it well with the voice acting stuff, and I'm pretty sure they're not like they're all just regular people. Critically Stupid is a rather interesting podcast because they're if they want to talk as their characters, they have to talk in a different voice. So that's while you're listening to the show, you know if they're talking as themselves and talking to the DM and stuff, or if they're actually talking as their characters because and the DM is actually really good as the show has gone along, like to make sure that like if you're talking in character, I need to hear that accent, and it's rather cool.
Speaking of that, where you're speaking in character for new players, it's not always comfortable to speak as your character. I have been playing for many years. I have landed on the side of my character has a charisma score of 17. I personally have a charisma score somewhere around the 5 range. I'm not going to attempt to talk as my character. I'm going to roll a dice, and my character will say something eloquently, and I will give a rough estimation of what point I want to get across. I have played at those tables where they're like, you have to speak as your character. And it was like the first time I ever played with these people. I was like, I only know 2 of you here, and there's 12 people sitting at this table. I ain't doing it, dog.
Well, and
That's
for
why
DMs
I
that are
always have
just
a
getting
high
going,
intimidation.
that is a pothole that many DMs fall into, and some of them never climb back out of. Here's the thing, guys, and this is a matter of my own opinion. I have found in practice that this is the best way to go. If you have a character with a 20 strength, you're not going to make them go out into the front yard and rip a tree out of the ground.
Joke's
And
on
so
you.
if you have a
Yeah, Clark
character with a
can.
20 charisma, don't expect them to actually voice stuff. Be okay with your characters doing just like Travis said. Give me a rough estimation of what you're saying, and then roll the dice, and we'll determine how well you do.
I will.
Another thing that I'm going to throw out real quick, and this is important given the subject matter, if you're just starting to DM D&D, realize that the dice represents factors outside of a character's control impacting that roll.
Yep.
That train of thought right there, when you think of the dice as outside factors, environmental factors affecting the character, will let you know when to call for a roll and when to not call for a roll.
I
And
have to.
because a lot of times you don't need it, you don't need to do that. So
I have to tell a really fun story very fast, and then we will get to Clark's point because she had her finger up first. I remember playing with Ryan. This is when we were both still in high school, and Ryan had rules for a free resurrection. You could either, if you could convince Ryan that you deserved to be resurrected, you would get to come back at the same level. If not, you lost a level every time you died. Because we gotten pretty cavalier with whether or not we survived stuff. Um, and our friend Robbie. So, Robbie, here's your shout out on the podcast you requested. Is not the most eloquent speaker. He's a great dude. He's super nice. He's wonderful to hang out with. Not exactly the best like public speaker. And so there's 10 of us in high school sitting around a table, and Robbie's trying to convince Ryan that he needs to be resurrected. And so he's just stumbling all over his words. And he was just like, "Well, I didn't mean to die." And Ryan goes, "Well, then why did you die?" And another guy at our table like had just finally was like making fun of Robbie because he couldn't spit anything out, and he goes, "Cause I stupid." and, like, and so that was a fun story about how he made fun of Robbie because when the pressure was on, he couldn't speak to Ryan, who he had literally known for like 8
yeah.
years.
Well, and it's one of those things. There's a whole
I'm
bunch of
sorry,
factors.
Robbie, that was the story that Travis
I
decided to give you
know.
the shout
I
out.
always
You
preface this
seem
with
like a
Robbie's like
nice
super
person,
nice.
but
He's
he's just
great.
gonna
I love Robbie.
poster you on national podcast.
So I guess the word we're looking for
Bam.
is anyway.
Anywho,
Clark, what'd
Like
you have?
you didn't love that moment any less than I do,
Oh no.
Ryan.
Well, and there's a whole bunch of fun stuff, and that's a byproduct of doing a ground up group is you get those kind of stories. It's just like we have a player. His name's Bones. He's fantastic, and we had done one game where we were switching in between two different runs. And in one run, I think he was a vampire or vampire spawn of some kind, and he frequently would go into gaseous form. It was just a special ability that he had. He could turn into mist. In this next one, he was playing something like a bear folk or some kind of like big beat 'em up beefstick character,
He was
and
a
he
bugbear barbarian.
is a bugbear, yeah. And so he gets into the thick of stuff, and immediately he goes, "I go gaseous." Just kidding, because he had mixed up the
Just
campaigns, and so
kidding.
here we are 15 years later, and people still drop that tone, that phrasing of just kidding, because of that. um so I do want to take this opportunity because I know we're getting close to time here, in that
No, we still got
D&D,
time.
yeah, we still got time. D&D is a fantastic starting point. I think D&D 5th edition in particular is one that is a great place for beginners. In fact, almost everything that I've heard that's negative about D&D 5th edition is negative to veteran players who want something a little more, with more body to it, with more complexity, with more whatever. I'm
Clark,
actually
what was
running. Sorry, yeah, Clark, what'd you have?
Clark, what did you have?
I was just gonna ask what other tabletops you recommend that aren't D&D and Pathfinder because I just googled it and I really want to play Mork Borg now.
Okay, so Morkborg is
It
a
looks
dangerous path to follow.
why
Um,
because it seems like the path of my dreams.
well,
Dudes of
so
Legend.
Dudes of
actually
the
on the
Legend is
No,
subject
Dudes
of Dudes
of
of Legend.
Legend.
oh
So when you're thinking about what game you want to get into, the kicker is going to be what you want out of the story. If you're starting from a ground up group where you have 5 of your friends that have never played before, have what we all call the session zero talk, and you need to decide what you want because every game is going to feel a little bit different. You look at some of the popular games that are out right now. World of Darkness and their similar Chronicles are fantastic games. They're all D10 based. The mechanics are very easy to understand, and they have a plethora of different styles of game that blend into the World of Darkness. where it always changes, and so you can find the vibe you're looking for. If I gather 5 of my friends together and we want something very gritty, very realistic, very lethal, and very scary, I want some horror gaming, I'm going to lean very strongly into World of Darkness, specifically
S-
in Mortal or in Vampire or in Werewolf.
Savage Worlds
Um,
is also a good one to start.
Savage Worlds is wonderful. Savage
It's a
Worlds, and
little more crunchy.
it's got a cousin called GURPS.
I haven't played
Those
that
are
one.
Well, GURPS is an acronym. It stands
Oh,
for General Universal Role Playing System, something similar to that.
much less
Um,
fun than GURPS.
so what it is a set of mechanics that forms a skeleton of a game, and then you can apply that to any genre or anything you want the game to be. And so if
Clark
you want to
is
play superheroes, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Clark, is GURPS as fun an acronym as DP was for you this week in all your
Oh
meetings?
my god. Yeah, we have consumer product, which is abbreviated as CP, and demand planning, which is abbreviated as DP. And I cannot be the only degenerate in the company, but I also refuse to email HR begging them to no longer use these acronyms.
Like, there's your boss. She's like, we need to get more people in on this DP. And Clark's just like,
Yeah. Yeah, I had to turn off my camera. I was like, oh my God, I am a child. And they're like, CP's really going up. And I'm like, I hope no, no, no,
Clark's over
no.
there trying to hold in a laugh so bad people think she's beatboxing in the background. She's like,
It was, I cannot be the only person. And I feel like I am. And I was like, have none of you been on the internet ever?
what's that scene from Friends where Chandler's like shouting at somebody on the phone at his work, and he's like, well, I'm looking at the weenus and I'm not happy.
R.I.P.
I've never
Chandler, by
watched
the way.
Friends like all the way through. I think I've seen like 5 episodes. I'm sorry.
R.I.P.
Sorry, I had
Chandler.
to bring
Anyway,
that up and ruin Clark's
yeah.
train of thought.
I had completely forgotten about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I was really trying to repress that memory.
To answer
Therapy
your question,
wasn't
though,
working.
if I'm going
Ryan
to
also a big
avoid
fan of the DP meetings.
if I'm going to avoid older editions, which depending on the system you're in, older editions have draws to a lot of players. If you're looking for something gritty and very narrative, very role
When you
play
say
driven,
gritty, what do you
yes.
mean?
So gritty is a term used to describe an unforgiving and realistic as possible system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, World of Darkness matches that very good. It's designed to be scary, and it's also designed to let you be scary. The newest editions of World of Darkness are very narrative driven. They basically gutted all of the rules and all the mechanics and replaced it with a interactive narrative system, which is really nice if that's the type of game you're looking for.
Well,
If
it
you're looking
helps
for
you avoid. What was the name of that wonton? Um, when it got hit by the stripper apocalypse.
yeah.
Did you say stripper apocalypse?
Okay, there's a
Yes.
story here. So
Uh,
me and
Is this
Travis
a
used to play
game
in an
and what game is it?
So it was
I
based
want to
on
be
World of
strippers in the
Darkness.
apocalypse.
It was
yeah.
based on World of Darkness, specifically Mage, and all of a sudden we had an influx of like a ton of new
50.
players that all got very favorable treatment from some of the STs.
ST
Being
stands for
that
storyteller for the record.
storyteller, yeah. Being that they could blue book stuff very easily, which is basically stuff that happens not in session. You basically type out what you've been doing, and they award you XP based on what you wrote. Uh, I was a frost giant, and I was not as strong as an 80-pound magical girl
Seems
who
like a
had
you problem.
looks 8. Like,
Well,
literally
so
every character had whatever the magical equivalent was of I'm extremely good looking. And I mean,
yeah.
when I say every character, Clark, I mean every character.
You're
All right,
just
so
mad that
context
you
for
didn't get
this.
that isekai overpower.
Context for this, Wonton Wicked, so shout out to Wonton Wicked. It was a fantastic role-playing platform
It was super
for
dope.
World of Darkness.
Is it gone now?
I think it's gone
Oh,
now.
okay.
There might be some people that still use it on the regular, but
I think
what it was
Roll20
really
and different
interesting.
platforms like that kind of.
Yeah. So what it was it was basically a chat room, more or less, um, that was separated into channels based on your game, and you could come in, build a character, and you could live and interact through your character's everyday life on this platform. It was literally a deep immersion RP simulator. And every
Yep.
once in a while, a storyteller would step in and run scenes for small groups where that would be more akin to a standard table experience where you're out there, you're casting your spells, you're fighting your monsters, doing your
It'd be
stuff.
like doing a session for D&D.
This
To get
seems really weird.
It was unusual, but it was fantastic.
super fun.
Second Life
Now,
RPG.
the strip apocalypse that he's referring to, when I tell you that there were 50 people that came in and made strippers, that's not an exaggeration. There were around 50 extra new mages in the game that
Yeah.
all made very similar concepts with very similar power abilities.
99% of them female. I think I can recall 2 male characters
Yeah.
that came in.
Sounds like
And
y'all
so
jealous.
that's a very niche anecdote, and for
They
those of
were
you
all
that
very broken.
yeah. So
Like
any
they would have.
case,
Yeah, my frost giant with strength. What was I like? Strength, like 6 strength, which means that I could lift a car overhead.
That's pretty good.
Was getting out muscled by 80-pound anime characters essentially that could bench press a planet before
Yeah.
they juiced magically, and then they were like, I can technically, if I like go completely full strength with all of my magic abilities, can crack a planet in half. And I'm like, I don't want to play a session with you.
I think
That's
that's called Super
boring.
Saiyan.
The thing
I
with
mean,
World of
essentially.
Darkness though, that's a little bit like that's like if you want to act and like things like
it's
that a
more
lot of
RP
times.
driven. Yeah, the
Yeah,
mechanics
because like
aren't as
they have a great
as
system
important.
though. Like the political system they have, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That game can get very lethal
yeah.
very fast.
Like there's a lot, like the big thing I love it is just the whole political thing, like the Camarilla versus, can't remember the other organization's name, but and all the clans broken down, they're all pretty cool.
The vampire factions.
Yeah, all the different clans that they got. Like I was huge into Bruja and then like I think it was La Sombra because they could control the shadows,
Oh,
things
so
like that.
did you play the newest editions or the older editions?
I played older. I haven't
Yeah, because
messed with newer as much. Are all the clans gone now? I know they were
they just took
limited.
they took a little bit of a different turn. So in World of Darkness, so Clark, if you're not familiar, World of Darkness, you have the basic setting, what we call mortal, where you're just Joe the pizza delivery guy and start getting attacked by vampires and stuff.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah,
Yeah, happens
you
on
can
happens to pizza delivery dudes all the time. Honestly, it's the most dangerous
That's why
job.
they carry garlic bread.
yeah.
It's to ward off the vampire while they serve
Oh
spaghetti.
man.
Yeah.
So you can
Just
branch
to
out
get full
and
You're
play
welcome.
what's called super games, and that's where you can play in vampire, werewolf,
Okay.
changeling, um, geist, hunter, and that kind of thing.
Changeling is essentially Fey for those of you
yeah, it's
confused.
it's a
It's not
Fey
the
game. True Fey game.
shapeshifter. It's the some of them are shapeshifters,
Some of
but
them
it's
are. Yeah.
technically Fey.
It's based off of the changeling mythos, where your baby was stolen by the Fey and they left what's called a fetch behind. Um, any case,
Not
so
to be confused with the game you play with your dog.
Oh,
yeah,
I was
I
more
guess a lot
thinking
of this
like I've
terminology
been
is
trying
really
to
interesting.
step
so that way,
for a very long time.
So
sorry, I keep providing unnecessary
yeah,
clarifications.
so in the old World of Darkness, it was extraordinarily powerful. Like it's famous for being an overpowered game. And so then they decided what they called the New World of Darkness, or Inwad, or Nwad, or whatever. And they re-released all the games. And so you have Vampire the Masquerade turned into Vampire the Requiem, which was kind of just a second edition. And so what Eric was referring to with the La Sombra and the Bruja and a lot of that kind of stuff are bloodlines of vampires that weren't in New World of Darkness. They have made a little bit of a resurgence into the newest edition of the game. And I will say, in order to fit everything kind of into our frame here, World of Darkness is great if you're wanting a deep dive RP experience in a dark world. It's not happy friend time, it's not a joyous place. They're designed to be scary, it's designed to be unforgiving, and the point of World of Darkness games is actually to explore flaws in your character. There's always a system in place about, this game is exploring hubris. This game is exploring humanity versus being a monster. That's playing in Vampire. Ultimately, yeah, you can be super powerful and go full Goku break the world mode, but the game's actually about exploring that thin line between when do you stop being human and when do you become a monster.
And if you do go
Um,
full Goku, they have people that will take care of you in the game
Yeah.
that are
yeah,
literally designed to do that, to like not let you break the system.
So I was speaking of new systems that are good for players. Deadlands Reloaded, which is based on the Savage Worlds um, rule set, also pretty friendly to new players who are looking for
yeah.
something that's a little darker but want something that's pretty crunchy.
Well, and that's a
It's
Western game,
very,
and
yeah,
so
it's Western based. It's apocalyptic,
I was actually
and
going to bring up, and a lot of people avoid these because of the mainstream or branding issues, but I think the mechanic system's amazing. For beginners, look into the new Star Wars RPG games, Age of Rebellion and
Age of Rebellion's good.
Force and Destiny and Edge of the Empire. These are fantastic narrative-based Star Wars games that are not super mechanic heavy. In fact, if you get somebody in there to break it, they can break not easily, but steadily.
Yeah, if they
But they're
hyper focus,
fantastic games for beginners.
they can break a single mechanic, but then they become useless in every other aspect. It's one of those things where it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, if you hyper focus one thing, yeah, you become a savant at it, but you can't do anything else.
Well, you just got to be kind of. It's a dangerous path. The last Star Wars game that we played, Bones, a player at our primary table, he made a crafter, and that was all he did. It's all he was good at. But because of the stuff that he could craft out of scrap in a cave, Tony Stark style, the game ended up unraveling just from the way that he built his character. Um, and it's not his fault. It's not even really the game's fault. But
His
you do have to. It's just like every other game. You have to treat the table with some kind of
yeah,
respect. You're
his
not going in
character made
there.
me the most lethal person on the battlefield.
Yeah, and this works with every system, no matter what you're playing, guys. Whether it's World of Darkness or whether it's D&D or any tabletop system, bear in mind that you are in there to have a collaborative storytelling experience with the table. You're not the main character. Nobody's going to think it's cool if you break the game. In fact, it ruins the fun. And so be sure and go in with the table understanding what you want from the game. And you know what? I say this, if you have a DM and a table that's looking to do that, that's fine as long as everybody's having fun. Break the game, go to town. That's about what Doodle Legends is all about. It's a World of Darkness game about breaking the game. And if that's the table's understanding, fantastic. But if you
Dudes
sit
of
down at a
Legend is
table
so
with
dope.
5 other people that are looking to have a really deep existential game, and you make a character named Dick Longflop, there's some inconsistencies there.
So,
Um,
what?
I have like I put $20 on knowing what Travis's next character's name is gonna be.
But so one thing I do want to say in regards to what you're saying, Ryan, is like when you so I just recently started a campaign. Now, before these people got into it, we talked about it and I was like, look, I'm planning on this being a long-term thing. I was like, so some things we went over was like homebrew rules. I was like, as we play, we're gonna change some stuff. I was like, because I think certain rules are just stupid. I was like, you're heroes. I was like, first off, so you're already favored in my opinion, and you're better than your average person, so you already get a little bit of leeway with things. And I was like, we're gonna work on some rules as we go. So like, I want to do things different than just the book, so I'm using it as kind of a
more
play.
Like a
guidelines than
foundation.
Right,
actual rules.
right. So and we're gonna kind of branch off of that a little bit. I got a couple ideas I picked up from other games and stuff that I want to incorporate if they like it. But I'm going to talk to my table, so I do it before we play. We went over everything, like, so they're cool with how we're gonna do the rules. I said, now when they pick these rules, the bad guys get the same rules. So if you want these rules, just so you know, they apply to everybody.
Mhm.
And then you also got to talk about time frame. So like I told him, I said, I want this, like my last campaign was a little over a year. I want this one to be longer. Um, so I'm trying to do my best to write more content and stuff like that. But that's definitely something you should go over, because if you know you're going to do like a quick thing, it's going to get, I think it'll get a little crazy, because I know I won't take it as serious. I'll have fun. I won't be an asshole, but I'll have fun because I know it's not. There's no plan to keep it going. So you won't. I don't think you take it as serious as you like level up and things like that. 'Cause you know it's gonna end, so you want to try something new.
I know, yeah, I
Again,
know if
don't
I'm
be
doing a
an
short
ass.
run, I don't try to break the game, but I definitely do some of my more wild concepts to see if they function. If
Well,
I
and there
know
are
it's like this
some,
is going to be 6 sessions max, like
yeah,
let's
there are
try it.
some
Try it.
games that are
Yeah.
meant to be very lighthearted and frivolous and
Yep.
kind of joyous. You look at Spelljammer. Nothing about Spelljammer is meant to be
Spelljammer.
taken super
No.
seriously. There are space hippos who are excellent with blunderbusses. Like it's not a game that's all about the gritty realism. It's not about anything. It's
Clark
just
was like, I
Spelljammer.
heard Space Hippo and I'm in.
Yeah. So
I did. So tell me more about the spacey booze.
Spelljammer is a D&D offshoot game it's canon. It's in the universe, and it's a science fantasy RPG where you are characters on a spaceship, heavy air quotes on that one, that are adventuring through the cosmos. And when I say that, the best analogy that I can give you is actually the animated Disney movie Treasure Planet. It's that kind of
Yeah.
stuff where
Mm,
the mechanics of space travel and gravity and atmosphere are just kind of ignored in favor of
I
something
like
more
it.
fun to play in. And the entire game is meant to be over the top and goofy and dramatic and kind of, you know, joy filled. It's kind of there's a term to describe it, but yeah,
Fun.
it's colorful, it's fun. And so all of your characters are like, Bob over here is playing a sentient amorphous ooze who is a master mechanic because he can squeeze into the tight spots.
I'm
I made
gonna
an
And
have to
ooze
play
one.
this. What is this called? Starfield?
Spelljammer.
Not even close.
Spelljammer.
Yeah.
Good
Starfield is
luck
an
me.
Xbox game.
Yeah. No.
Overrated.
You talk about playing an ooze. I have literally played one
Oh yeah.
as a character. His name, which speaking of Ryan and like the wild character names, his name was Ab, and it stood for Amorphous Blob.
I was
Yep.
thinking like abscess, but I like it.
And
My
so
name was Amorphous Blob.
yeah, and it's one of those things. It's meant to be kind of just fun. It's not super dark, and it's not end of the world stuff. It's treasure hunting in space on
Yeah.
an actual brigantine. Like it's just what it is, and it's a fantastic game. I love it, and that's where, just like Eric was saying, we are going to do an episode on house rules eventually. I've been talking about it for months now. I do think we need to do it
Probably a
soon.
year actually, but yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Tis
but
been a
know
while.
what your table's getting into, and have a discussion with your players and your DM about what kind of story you're looking to have and what you're looking for. And if you're starting up a new group, don't be afraid to experiment. You never know what spaghetti's going to stick to the wall. And
You're
Just
all
to
take
bring
your
welcome.
everything back to spaghetti.
You're
All
so
is
welcome.
spaghetti.
all is spaghetti, the flying spaghetti monster.
Um,
Um,
one thing we really have to talk about before we end this, and it's something I wish I would have put a lot more thought into before I started spending my money. So none of this is a cheap hobby. It
true.
can be inexpensive. It's not as expensive as like when we talked miniatures last week, but it can be. So one thing you need to take into consideration is how you're going to play. So I I don't have a lot of local players, so I wish I went to buy physical books. It is nice to have them, but I had to buy the books twice. So since I play online on Fantasy Grounds, um, I had to buy all my books again.
Not a
So
sponsor, just a really cool platform.
right. So if you wherever you're looking to play, that's where you should look to buy. Because the thing is if you go Fantasy Grounds, you could still use it at your table. So you could still have a computer at your table and use the books and things through that and read them and stuff like that. It's not as easy when you're playing physical, but you don't want to be like me where I bought physical books, but I don't really play physical. I play all online. So I wasted a decent chunk of change. And you can also look at like D&D Beyond. If you're going to deal with D&D Beyond, if you're going to get your books there, you're probably not going to play on Fantasy Grounds because it doesn't all integrate as well. You'll probably look at something like a Roll20 instead, where you can play Roll20 and D&D Beyond together, and it works really well. So that is just something I gotta emphasize like a lot because the books are pricey. You want to know what you're doing.
If you're doing physical copies, hit up used bookstores.
Yep.
Like that's the easiest and cheapest way to find RPGs, especially if you're playing a set behind. So if you're really on a budget, and you want to play tabletop RPGs, but you don't have the money to shell out for the brand new latest edition, go hit up those used bookstores in your area or even online, and get the previous edition. They go for much cheaper, especially if you buy used books. There's a chain of stores in the DFW area and I think elsewhere called Half Price Books. I go there all the time when I'm looking for a physical copy of a rule book because if they've got one, they can look in their little system, transfer it over to the local store, and I can go pick it up. And it's much cheaper than buying a brand new book. It may have some stains on it and some of the pages may be a little bent, but who cares? It's usually about 30 to 40% less than a brand new book. So definitely save some nickels and dimes that way.
So I'm actually going to jump in right there with one other thing, because in regards to cost-effective gaming, if you are going to play what I refer to as an analog game, a traditional physical game where you're sitting down at a table and playing, make sure and talk to your DM and talk to your players on whether the game is going to be theater of the mind or tactical, because that's a major difference in how you play the game. Theater of the mind games are just the DM describing a scenario, an environment to you, and telling you distances and everything that you need to do. Whereas a tactical game uses maps, miniatures, grid paper, and that kind of thing. There's no wrong decision here. Tactical games are more about precision and are more about, like, not just precision but positioning, right? I can put my fireball right here because it's a 20-foot radius sphere and it'll hit the bad guy but not my teammate who's standing 5 feet next to him. Whereas a theater of the mind game is a lot more fluid, it's a lot more cinematically driven, but the rules aren't as precise. So you'll just ask your DM, if I cast fireball, am I going to hit, so and so or whatever? And they'll tell you, yeah, you can position it in a way where you can catch 3 of the 5 bad guys and none of your teammates, or, you can catch them all, but poor Travis is going to be stuck in the middle, and watch your mage be like, well, roll high on your save, bro. Um,
Do your best.
yeah.
I
And the reason I bring that
mean,
up is
fireball.
because
Yeah.
certain games lend themselves to one version or another better. D&D is very tactically minded. D&D
Yeah.
wants you to use miniatures and grids and that kind of thing. World of Darkness does not. It doesn't want you to do a tactical game. It wants everything in theater of the mind.
Scion is
And so,
also very theater of the mind.
yes, it is.
I will say, fun new tip for new players. If any of you guys are interested in getting into tabletop RPGs, or if you've just found a table, don't be afraid to talk to other people at the table and see what they can do, because then you find these really fun spell combinations.
And do it in
Like,
character. It's fun.
yeah, for instance, this is a handful of campaigns ago. I was playing a rogue. I was a thief. It let me use, for my bonus action, I could use an item. So I would use my primary action to activate my bracers, where I could get 2 daggers to throw and deal damage. And then as a bonus action, I could do a myriad of things because rogues are very heavy on their bonus action economy in 5th edition. I could use an item from my pack, which meant drawing an item and using it. I found a fun combination with our sorcerer who's casting a spell called Arms of Hadar, which creates this big, basically oubliette of darkness that damages people and blinds them. So the fun thing to do is wait for him to cast that spell, and then every turn, roll in a bag of ball bearings. That way, no
Yep.
one can leave.
No, yeah, that's fact. And it's fun to do it in character because you kind of get that MCU Avengers teaming up, where it's like, I didn't know you could. Do you turn into ants? Why did they call you Ant-Man?
Yeah,
Um, and it can be a bonding experience, a good RP experience.
yeah. Also, through communication with other players, we found out that between myself, a druid, and I think our party wizard, we could literally lock down an entire section of a battlefield where no one could move without taking some type of damage.
Oh, absolutely lethal effects. Like being able to
Yeah.
stack spell effects and stuff like that can be a lot of fun, especially if you have a mechanics driven kind of table. Our primary table, we've been playing since 2003, and
Yeah.
a lot of players have become very mechanically driven. They're looking to kind of min max and power game, and so we design our stories around that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it can be a lot of fun to watch all those effects kind of stack up if you have a table designed for it. If and that's where realistically, I guess this entire episode can be summarized with have a lot of communication with your play group.
Go have fun.
Yeah, have some fun. Make sure everybody else at the table is having fun. Whether you're starting from a ground up with nobody knowing anything about what's
Make
going on.
make
You
that
okay there?
lawful good paladin with a follower named Chauncey who you treat like absolute ass.
No.
Clark.
Okay.
I have
I-
never seen anyone abuse an NPC the way Clark's lawful good paladin treated her squire.
Let me tell
Yeah,
you,
I'm gonna lose
so
them
my
holy
in
spells.
my backstory, I had to prepare him because nobody prepared me for when I was a paladin. So I went tough love because my plan was to die, and I had this big long speech if Noah ever killed me, where I'd basically like reach up to him and be like, Chauncey, I tried to do this all for you. Yeah, I beat the shit out of Chauncey. He
She was playing basically that like you teach them to swim by tossing them into the lake.
I was like, don't pee your pants, let's go. Get the rope and jump down there.
It's the outlaw golf game where you can get mad bonuses for beating the shit out of your caddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
But yeah, guys. So yeah, that's the way we're set up for kind of beginners. It is all about communication. It's about what you want, and that's whether you are starting from the ground up, whether you have an experienced DM starting a new table, or whether you've been playing together for years and years and years and just want to try something new. It's all about communication, and it's about having fun.
Hi Jenkins, I see your asterisks.
Shameless plug here in regards to communication. We're coming up on the end of the episode, so I'm going to ask you guys one more time to do all those fun algorithm things. If you've joined us on YouTube, if you enjoyed what you heard and what we talked about, don't be afraid to give us a like, give us a subscribe, tell your friends about us, and do all those fun algorithm things because it really does. It helps us out. It helps keeps the light on. And
If you want to see
yeah,
more cute Jenkins pictures.
we actually did have more viewers than usual, so
Because
there's a
the-
that's
plus.
fantastic.
Fun final final point I have to get through. I have to publicly eat crow since I said it wouldn't happen and then it did. I said there was no chance that CM Punk's return to WWE. He did. This is me eating crow. However, his return was not the one that made me happiest at Survivor Series. Randy Orton's return was not the one that made me happiest. Fucking R-Truth is back, and that's all that matters to me. This entire week has been me eating up all the R-Truth memes that have been coming out again. So if R-Truth ever hears this, Ron, you're doing fantastic. You're literally the best part of WWE, in my opinion. And we love and appreciate all of the goofy things that you do at the age of like 50. So yeah, that was the fun return. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Last crazy question for everybody. So,
Who
your
wins in a
GURPS
fight?
Well, I mean, so what? No, what it actually is, I don't want to keep doing that. That's going to get overused. So, if I were to take the the GURP system or whatever you had mentioned, you
Yeah.
can kind of do whatever. I feel like we could live out some of these fights that we've mentioned throughout time and history.
There's actually
stats would need to be gathered for all these different and figured out and agreed
You're
upon.
saying like WWE fights?
No. I'm talking like Pikachu versus a Gundam.
No.
You could do it with the GURP system. It's just you
Well,
got to figure out stats.
Yeah,
So here's the
where
thing.
you're going to go off the rails, and we're going to spend 45 minutes arguing about Pikachu's strength stat. And no, I'm not going to do it to myself.
Playing chess with a pigeon over here. Now, interestingly enough, there is stuff for GURPS and the Savage World system that I believe is called Ultimate Battles. That is exactly what you're talking
See?
about.
This
See?
is the ultimate showdown. Ultimate
Levi
destiny.
versus a Gundam. That's a good one.
No.
It
It's
still
not.
doesn't
Gundam
work,
wins
Eric.
10 out of 10.
I'm gonna live
Still
in my
doesn't work.
fantasy world. I want to see it happen.
See, this
I
is where the
wanna
arguing
see
with
it.
a pigeon comes in because he's not playing chess. He's knocking the pieces over and shitting on the board and acting
I
like a
am.
pawn.
This is
The
what it
coolest
is.
3 seconds is the Gundam activates a boot jet and burns Levi to death.
Activate point defense system. All incoming projectiles get riddled with 50 cal. Like, any case, thank you guys
Anyway,
for
Thank
joining us
you.
here. Give us a like, give us a follow, and all that fun algorithm stuff.
Christmas stuff's out. Check
Christmas
it out.
stuff is out.
T-shirt and a Christmas shirt. We're gonna do.
CrossingTheNerdverse.com, right?
Yep, we're gonna do spring line eventually too, which will actually be a lot bigger than this Christmas one. The Christmas one's kind of small. Had a lot going on. Also check out the reviews that are up on the website. A lot of good podcasts are on there. I listen to a lot of them. I enjoy them. I do put real shit. If the podcast sucked, I would say it. I've yet to have a shitty one, so they've all been pretty good.
And with that, we're going to bring this episode to a close. Next week, we're going to have dual topics. The first one, comics. The second, why Eric has carabiners.
Is
Yeah.
that what they are?
Yeah, they're carabiners on his headset. I don't know.
Okay.
And so with that, we're going to bring this episode to a close. Thanks for joining us. We've been Crossing the Nerdverse, and we'll catch you next time.
See you guys.
Woo woo.
Spaghetti.